Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about focus, directrix, and vertex form of a parabola. So I have drawn here a parabola. A parabola is a U-shaped graph that is created when there is a squared involved in your equation. So we're going to talk about some definitions here in this picture. Let's start first here with this one. This is called the vertex. Another name for it might be the turning point. All right. The vertex is where the parabola has a minimum or maximum value. And before and after that, it's going in the same direction. The coordinates of the vertex are h, k. And we'll talk about what that means in a second. But a vertex is a point. Points have coordinates. You've probably heard this term before. Let's talk about two new terms you haven't heard before. This line here is not actually shown on the graph. This is called the directrix. And that's an invisible line that the parabola never hits and it never crosses. But it's important for when we also talk about this word here. This point here is called the focus. Now, just like the directrix, it's an invisible point that we don't usually draw. The focus is a little easier to understand. The focus is pretend that we shoot a laser beam or something inside of this parabola, and this focus is like the point at which the parabola spins around, right? So that laser beam, no matter where we shoot it, it's going to end up bouncing and hitting that spot. Okay? So we have focus, we have vertex, we have directrix. Now let's talk about one more thing, and that's this distance right here. This distance right here and this distance right here, they're both the same. And we're going to call that the letter P. Now the definition of directrix, I struggled to explain it because really the directrix is just the same distance from the vertex, the focus, but in the other direction. And that definition works regardless of where I am on the parabola. So let's say I pick this point here on the parabola. This distance right here is P. This distance here is always going to be the same distance as that. Now this is a bad drawing, so that doesn't fully look right, but I can pick any point on the parabola, and the distance from that point on the parabola down to the directrix should be the same as the distance from that point to the focus. Now, why does all this matter? Because you can use the p-value and the vertex to make the equation of the parabola here. So let's pause for a second while I get an example on the board here. And just like that, we have an example here. So we have a parabola that has a directrix of y equals 6. It has a vertex of -3, 1, and has a focus of -3, -4. We're going to sketch this, and then we're going to write the equation using this, this equation up top. So my sketch is going to look something like this. The directrix of y equals 6. If I go to the y-axis and I go to 6, the directrix is going to look like this. Let's label it like 6. The focus is -3, -4. So we're going to label that right there. And we're going to I'll just label it focus out here, just so it's not in the way. And I know that's small, but you know that's the focus. And then the vertex is -3, 1. So the vertex is right there. I'm going to label that one a little bigger. -3, 1. So in our first example, the directrix was on the bottom, the focus was on top, and the vertex was in between. Your vertex is always going to be between them. If the focus is on top, the directrix has to be on the bottom. In this case, the directrix is on top and the focus is on the bottom. Now in this one, the parabola opened up because the focus was on top. This one, since the focus is on the bottom, our parabola is going to open downward. All right, so if the directrix is above the focus, the parabola opens downward. If the focus is above the directrix, the parabola opens upward. Now, there is a possibility for parabolas to open left and right, but we're not going to do that today. So now let's use this information to write the equation of this parabola. This is called vertex form, and there's 3 letters we have to change. We have to change the P, we have to change the H, and we have to change the K. We're going to leave X and Y. We're going to leave the 1 and the 4. We're going to leave the square, the parentheses. We're only going to change 3 values, the P, the H, and the K. Let's start with the P. The P, remember, is how far is it from the vertex to the focus? Or how far is it from the vertex to the directrix? So if our vertex is negative 3, 1, how far is this? How far is that? And how far is that? Well, this is dealing with Y values. And since we're only going up and down, we only have to focus on Y values. So 6 down to 1, that must mean that the P value is 5. Now I'm going to say negative 5. And 1 down to negative 4, that's also negative 5. Remember, these 2 values should be the same. So our P value is negative 5. If your parabola opens downward, your P value should always be negative. So Y equals 1 over 4 times P, which is negative 5. X minus. Now H, K are the coordinates of the vertex. So the vertex is right here, HK. We already determined that. So I just need to take these numbers and plug them in. Now, this should be a minus, but this already is a minus. So that means that we're actually going to make this be a plus. And this one should be a plus, and it is a plus, so we don't have to change anything there. So the number in the parentheses is always the opposite of whatever the number of the vertex's x was. So if this is negative, the number in the parentheses should be positive. And the number at the end is always exactly the value that we need. So this was positive, that stays positive. So the equation of this parabola, let's just simplify it. The denominator here is 4 times negative 5. That's going to be negative 20. X plus 3 squared plus 1. So that's the equation of that parabola. You don't have to simplify. You don't need to use box method on the squared. This is called vertex form, and we're going to leave it in this form because if I look at it, just at a quick glance, I know my vertex is negative 3, 1. And with a little more work, I can determine that the p-value is negative 5. All right, so that's all for today. Focus, directrix, and vertex form. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.